Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Backstage Pass. My name is Dean Butch. I'm your host of the show, and today I get to sit down with a lovely lady that Jazz Times has called a serious jazz artist that takes everything to a whole new level. And not only that, but she is now nominated for her 7th Grammy nomination. Put your hands together as we welcome Tierney Sutton. Hello, how are you?
How you doing? See you.
Grammys are just this week, aren't they? They're coming up.
Yeah, I get home and then go into sort of Grammy craziness again.
Do you do a lot of interviews during Grammy week?
Well, Grammy week is a whole week full of events. They have parties and all sorts of things. And this year, unfortunately or fortunately, as the case may be, I have a gig the day before the Grammys with a great big band at Saddleback College in Orange County, about 2 hours south of where I live.
Okay.
And so I'm going to miss the nominees party and some other events that are going to be happening. But
are you performing during Grammy week?
I'm performing the night before the Grammys, and then but I'll go to the Grammys themselves.
But for the Grammys, are you doing any performance, like Grammy performances?
No.
And so you go to the Grammys. Do you get nervous? I mean, this is your 7th nomination.
I never get nervous. You know, it's a funny thing. Maybe it's un-American somehow, but I never feel like. I never have felt even an ounce of disappointment of not winning. I mean, you think of it. I think of it this way. I mean, so I've been nominated for every record I've made in the last 10 years, and your peers say that you're one of the 5 best, but you don't get to be the best. You know, and suddenly you're supposed to be this big loser somehow, but I don't buy it. I'm just totally over the moon to be part of it, and it's lovely. And you know, now I know the person to email about the tickets and how to deal with it, and because it's kind of ornate. But this year is actually really special for me because one of my former students is nominated with me. So I might get beat by a former student, so that's great. Gretchen Parlato has a record up, and then Diane Reeves, who's beaten me before. I'm always happy to be beaten by Diane Reeves. I never have any problem. And then Billy Childs has a beautiful record of the music of Laura Nyro, and one of my sort of mentees is on that record, Becca Stevens. So it's nice. And Renee Marie for her I Want to Be Evil record. So great. It's always people that I respect so much that I never, you know, Gregory Porter beat me last year, so. Came from the cruise, actually.
Yeah, he came straight to the cruise after.
Yes, exactly. So,
I've only ever been to the Grammys once through a friend, Dave Cos, but he going to the Grammys and going down all the special events and everything. I mean, it's a huge buzz.
Yeah, but it's also really insane because you got to look at it this way. There are almost 100 Grammy categories. All right, so you do the math. There's 5 nominees in each category.
Right.
Each one of them has a date. So you picture how many people are at that nominees party.
Yeah.
And so I remember the first time I was like, I felt so special, but maybe not. Although I always get a kick. I went to a Grammy event a couple of weeks ago, just a brunch they had for the Los Angeles chapter for nominees. And there was Weird Al Yankovic, and I put a picture up on my Twitter and Facebook. I said, it's not really Grammy season if I don't get a selfie with Weird Al, because he's always nominated. And he's a great guy, and he's there with his wife, who's lovely, and it's you know.
And is he weird?
He's lovely. He's really funny and cool, and yeah, he's great.
When you're at those parties, who have you bumped into that you've never met before, but you sort of got lost for words?
Well, it's kind of neat because the one thing that happens after the Grammys, during the day, we have the jazz and classical,
and the indie, and the folk,
yes, all the things that you don't see. There's only about 10 awards given on the show, so there's 90 more that they give away during the day. They have a big show now. It's at the Nokia Theater.
Okay.
And it's a lovely show, and they have some performances during the show, and they're always fantastic performances. And then after there's the telecast. Right. Which, I mean, you don't eat. I always tell my friends that haven't been nominated before, bring your food. You know, put something, flat shoes day, right? and power bars, because there's nothing to eat. And so you do the telecast, which lasts until the end of time. and then you wait and you go into the after party. But the cool thing is that there's a jazz lounge in the after party, and there might be Chick Corea sitting in with the band, or it could be anybody. It's just a beautiful, beautiful thing, and it's always kind of a quieter, more intimate setting.
Have you been up and performed in that?
I have not, but you never know. I may just force my way and say, okay, it's the 7th time I've lost this thing. Give me the mic.
How are you feeling about this one?
I have a theory of who's going to win, and I don't think it's going to be me. Is that bad to say that?
No.
But the thing is that there are so many strong contenders this year that I might sneak in just because there's like a bunch of people that could win.
I'm hoping you do win.
Why not? Why not?
If it's not you, who would it be?
Don't do that to me. But they're all really actually strong this year. So you never know. But I will say that Diane Reeves and Billy Childs are gonna fight it out a little bit, because Billy was her arranger. He's a great arranger, and he has all these singers on his record. And then Diane has a great record, and Gregory's singing on it, and Esperanza Spalding. But Billy's record has gotten a lot of press. And so a lot of the people that might vote for one might vote for another. And so maybe that's my competition, and they'll split it, and I'll sneak in there.
Well, I'm going to find out who you think is going to win when we go to this commercial break. Stick around. You're watching Backstage Pass with Tierney Sutton.
The signature jazz cruise on Seabourn is a beyond perfect way to spend 10 luxurious days in the Mediterranean, visiting the most famous ports of call in Europe, and 10 incredible nights of the most amazing jazz in the world. Join us as we visit Rome, Positano, Elba, Portofino, Cannes, Barcelona, Menorca, and Monte Carlo, and thrill to the music of Monty Alexander, Jeff Hamilton Trio, Joe Lovano, Marcus Miller, Houston Person, John Pizzarelli Quartet, Diane Reeves, and our Barcelona show featuring Eliane Elias and Maraca. The signature jazz cruise on Seabourn, the most luxurious jazz cruise in the world.
Welcome back to Backstage Pass. I'm here with Tierney Sutton. Tierney, you just mentioned you've got a few interviews to do, but really leading up to some of the gigs that you're doing. Do you enjoy touring?
I do enjoy touring. It's pretty exhausting, I have to tell you, but there is a certain energy about it. I'm kind of a person with two fighting energies. Part of me is sort of the traditional Cancer that frankly is a crazy cat lady, and I could just be in my little house and just be with my cat and be quiet and make food for my kid. I have an 18-year-old son. But then when I get ready to go on tour for a minute, I'm kind of freaked out and I don't want to leave. And then suddenly I get excited and I realize this is what I do. This is what I do, and the only way that you can make a living is by touring. So then I sort of get some energy.
Do you do bus tours or fly tours?
It's almost always flying, because usually you're too far away, or sometimes in Europe you can do train.
And now you've played, the Kennedy Center, you've played the Hollywood Bowl, Carnegie Hall. What's your favorite venue to play?
It's a good question. There's a theater in Santa Barbara, California, the Lobero Theater, and it's my favorite theater. But there's a whole group of these small theaters, maybe 600 to 2,000. Carnegie Hall's in that too, where they were built around the turn of the last century. They were built around 1900, somewhere between, say, 1880 and 1920. And they're anywhere from 600 seats to 2,000 seats. And they have a warmth and a history.
Okay.
And there's a whole bunch of them. There's the Sheldon in St. Louis, or Kansas City. There's a bunch of, there's the Pabst in Milwaukee, my hometown. And they're very special because these theaters have this history where they might have been old movie theaters, but all sorts of art has been in these theaters. And I remember when my band played Carnegie Hall, the feeling you have knowing all the things that have happened on that stage. It's really special. And nostalgic.
Do you find the acoustics are better in a larger venue or a smaller venue?
It really depends. It really, really depends. It depends on so many things,
Have you played SF Jazz?
Yes. That's a great,
phenomenal,
great venue. It's beautiful.
Yeah. I actually just saw Diane Reeves up there recently. When you are touring and you've got a child that's 18 now, but over the years, I mean, you would have had to be out quite a lot touring, and
yeah.
How difficult is that then to raise your son?
You know, it's a pretty difficult thing. I didn't tour a lot until he was about 8 or 9.
Okay.
I almost didn't tour at all when he was small. I remember when I signed my record deal with Telec, I said, look, if you want me to be on the road as much as Diana Krall, I'm not going to be. I got a 2-year-old, and they said, it's cool. Just make the record. We'll send you out for 2 weeks, a year after the record comes out, and it's okay. And so for many years, I didn't tour hardly at all. And then I started to tour, but it was kind of worked out fairly well. I would go to New York, and I remember I would finish my early show at the Algonquin and go up to my room, and I'd be able to call my son, because in LA it's 3 hours earlier.
Right.
And so it's interesting. It kind of, he got to the point where I would be able to talk to him on the phone. And
Did he go on the road with you much?
He didn't want to. No?
I
got to the point where I sort of wanted him to. In fact, I almost brought him on the cruise, but he would not survive without really good internet.
Welcome to my life for the past 4 weeks.
Yeah, and I think most of us, when they were saying Key West tomorrow, what does that mean, kids?
Yeah.
That means your phones might work.
Yeah.
Like the United States of America.
Yeah, tell me about it. And what does he do? What direction is he going to go in?
He's actually a drummer. He's starting to play drums, and he would have gone crazy for all the drummers and all the rest. And I think he would have really enjoyed that. But he had been out of school for a really long time, and he needed to get back to his stuff.
Let me ask you this. You know that the music business is a really difficult business to be in.
Oh, you think?
But yet you want to allow your son to follow his dreams. Is that a bit of a mind struggle to sort of prevent him from that industry that is difficult, or? I
think he knows really what the deal is.
Right.
And if he gets really dedicated to it, I don't have any problem with him doing it.
Yep.
I mean, I think the other thing is that doing music is, you do it, and my friends that are instrumentalists that practice a lot, that's a kind of spiritual discipline and a kind of meditation in and of itself. So just that practice is good for people. And 82% of the people on this cruise are musicians, so they know what I'm talking about. So it's, it's just what you do.
Is he a fan of your music?
He is. He is the biggest fan.
Is he?
He is so...
That's sweet. That must feel good.
It feels extremely good, and he wasn't always. I'll tell you one really great story about him. I did a gig in Palm Springs when he was about 4 or 5. And I did a set, and the audience, gave a standing ovation, and they were being really, really lovely. And he comes out, and he starts yelling, "You were horrible!" And we went back to the green room, and he was like, really grumpy. And I said, "Ryan, did you really think I was horrible?" And he said, "No, you were fabulous." He said, "But I am afraid those people are going to take you away."
That is sweet.
Isn't that sweet? But then later, and he wasn't really into music. He started listening to Vinnie Colaiuta, who's one of the great jazz drummers and great studio players in LA, and started listening to really, really great music. And then he started to listen to my band and other things, and he said, "Mom, man, I just love you." And he's great. He's like, "I don't like singers, but I like you, Mom." So it's very special to have.
Does he critique your music?
Yeah, well, he tells me what, gives me advice. Mom, you ought to do more of this, and you should do less of that. But mostly he's really, really supportive and great.
And is he right a lot of the time?
Yeah, I think he is. I hope he is, because he loves me. and he always tells me how great I am. So I like to think he's right, but I'm sure he's biased.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Backstage Pass. Stick around. We'll be right back with Tierney Sutton.
The Jazz Cruise is the greatest jazz festival at sea. In fact, as the first and only full ship charter in the world dedicated to straight-ahead jazz, the Jazz Cruise may just be the #1 jazz program in the world. With over 100 world-class musicians and vocalists, the Jazz Cruise is dedicated to presenting the very best music in the most professional setting, and doing so while providing a luxury cruise experience. In its 15th year, the Jazz Cruise 2016 is our crystal anniversary sailing, and we promise a very special program.
Welcome back to Backstage Pass. I'm here with Tierney Sutton. Woo! Let me ask you, see, the voice is an instrument, but unlike a drummer or a piano player, they lose their voice, they can still play.
Right.
What happens to you?
You mean if I get sick or something happens? Well, I have to say I've been really, really lucky. I have never had to cancel a show.
Never?
Never. Never.
Have you done shows that you thought you should have canceled?
Oh. Well, let's say I made some choices vocally that were interesting a couple of times. Usually, if you're singing with a certain kind of technique and you're not singing from your throat, then getting sick doesn't mess you up so much.
Right.
But if you sing from your throat, you can get nuked very, very easily. But I'm pretty easy on my throat when I'm singing. So in my years of touring, I remember a couple times where I got sick, and if I get laryngitis, like real die-hard laryngitis, there's usually about a 12-hour period during which there's no way I could sing. There's about a 12-hour period where just the Lord has spoken and you will not sing.
Right.
But I've never had to do a show during that 12-hour period. And if it's not in that 12-hour period, I can warm up. I'll have to sometimes warm up for 4 hours.
Really?
Just gently, warming up to get my sound, and then I can sing. And I might not be able to sing my whole range. I'll tell you a great story about Shelley with that is related to this, Shelley Berg. I was on tour with Shelley in about 2001, something like this. And I got laryngitis. And it was one of my first big tours. And I was really having a hard time. And so I told him, I said, listen, we have this gig tonight. I remember I'd been in Chicago and did a set until 2 o'clock in the morning and then was up at 5 a.m. to fly to Minneapolis and then went straight to a radio interview and straight to the show. I said, Shelley, this is really bad. I could barely talk when I woke up this morning. So when we work tonight, you take long solos. You just do, you work out, baby. You got to carry me. So we go in there and we got through the show. And we get to the end of the show, and somehow I warmed up. I finally made it through, and somebody yells out, "Do the peacocks," which is this really difficult, really challenging thing, and they wanted that as the encore. So I croaked it out, and it was okay, and so went back to the hotel. The next day, and Shelley mentions this all the time, and it's such a crime, the review criticized Shelley for overplaying. Okay? And said, oh, this guy thinks he's Oscar Peterson and plays too much and the culprit. And I could have killed that guy. Like, he's saving my butt on the road. And he gets slammed in their stupid paper, man. I just wanted to kill somebody. Anyway,
I'm going to have to ask him about that.
Yeah, no, well, actually don't. I don't know. But it's very funny. You never know what the story is.
In that 12-hour period, do you talk?
I'm pretty quiet. I sleep. When I'm on the road, I sleep a lot.
Because of the traveling and the air conditioning.
A lot. I'm by myself a lot. I don't go out after the gig. I go home. I go back to the hotel. I go to sleep. I can't do social things. I don't have big lunches with friends during the day. I mean, it is kind of, athletic in the sense that you have to be kind of focused.
And I mean, the air conditioning going in and out and planes and things like that.
Yeah, and I remember on that tour with Shelley, we went somewhere and we got to the hotel and it was really musty and weird, and Shelley just like, do you know who this is? And I was nobody, of course, but to him, he was so sweet. And he said, this is a really important jazz singer, and she cannot be in this hotel with this must and this mold. I mean, I was like, whoa,
So he's looked out for you.
Exactly. So in the next world, Shelley will get some rewards. He took some bullets from me many times.
Do you do scales warming up?
I do scales. I do scales, and I have some specific warm-ups that I do, yeah.
And a lot of tea, honey?
A lot of fluids, but the big one for me is sleep.
Yep. Who, in your opinion, is the greatest female voice of all time?
Wow.
Other than you?
Yeah, me. I'm going to say me. No. I'm going to say, I think I got to go with Ella. It's really difficult. There's a singer on the scene right now. Rochelle Farrell, who is one of the most amazing singers to hear live that you're ever going to hear. She's just something else. But Ella, I think it's interesting that you can kind of imitate Sarah Vaughan, even though she was my first hero. You can't even imitate Ella. You can't pretend you're Ella and sing like Ella, because it's so unique. So
male?
Probably I got to go with Ella.
What about a male?
There's some great ones. I mean, there's Frank, and in Frank's prime with the ballads, that's it. In terms of the diction and everything, I love Nat Cole. One of my absolute heroes of all music is Bobby McFerrin. So, and Al Jarreau, I got to do a duet with him on my last album, and he was one of my first vocal heroes.
Yeah, when you're putting together an album with duets, because I saw some of the people on there, how do you pick who you want to have on? And is it always easy to get them to agree?
Well, in that case, this is a very funny thing. Al Jarreau's musical director contacted me through Facebook. What is that? But okay. And he said, Al wanted to know if you might be willing to do a duet with him on his next album. And I was like, yeah, I think I could do that. And I had never met Al, but he was a huge, huge hero of mine. And that actually didn't end up happening, but in my negotiations about this, I said, actually, I'm doing this Joni Mitchell project, and I would love to have Al sing a song with me on my Joni Mitchell album. And that's the one that I have for sale here on the cruise with Hubert, Al Jarreau, Peter Erskine plays drums on it. Yeah, so it's sometimes things just happen in a certain way.
I asked John the other night, actually I asked Joey D the other night when he put his album out, there was a lot of Michael Jackson. So when you do a Joni Mitchell album, it's difficult to, you want to keep it somewhat authentic to how it was done, but also put your own flavour in there. What percentage of that is your own?
Well, with my Joni Mitchell record, I came at Joni Mitchell from the standpoint of a jazz singer. I really became a Joni Mitchell fan, strange as it sounds, by first hearing her sing jazz.
Okay.
She made an album in 2000 called Both Sides Now, an orchestral album, and it's mostly standards. And she sounds like Billie Holiday or something. She's so true in her jazz singing, and she's a big jazz fan. She's not, a lot of pop singers throughout the years have had this mood. You know, they wake up on Tuesday, and on Saturday they decide to do a standards record. You know, and I'm not mentioning any names. You know, it's all fine. But with her, this is music that she really lived with.
Genuine.
It was really genuine, and so there's a couple of standards on my album that are dedicated to Joni because I first heard her versions of those songs, and then her material. It took me a long time to have the courage to record her material because it is so iconic, and I wasn't sure I had something improvisational to say about it.
And it's a bit of a departure from what you were.
Yeah, but it got to the point where I kind of tried to immerse myself in it for really about 10 or 15 years, listening to it on the road.
Really?
I remember doing runs at Birdland in New York and take a walk. Exercise is a big part of my life when I'm on tour. And I would take my 3-hour walk through Manhattan with headphones, and I would listen to nothing but Joni Mitchell records and just listen to the songs over and over again because I hadn't listened to them growing up. I was a jazz junkie. I only listened to really jazz. And I thought, wow. And suddenly I realized when I went to enter these songs, I thought, I guess they've been inside me long enough now that things were coming out, like All I Want and different songs.
So is this album, in other words, this album is like 10, 15 years in the making somewhat?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who's on your iPod now? Who do you listen to now?
Who's on my iPod now? Well, you know, in the last couple of weeks, I've been listening to different people that were nominated for Grammys, a lot of beautiful arrangements of different things.
I mean, are you still a jazz junkie?
I am, but I am definitely less of a jazz junkie now. You know, I love listening to the ways people are bringing things together. I love Becca Stevens' band, and I love Robert Glasper. I love a lot of the kind of new ways people are putting jazz into things.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we don't have a lot of time left, but I want to thank you so much for not only sort of sharing some stories about your son and also, you know, your music interest and, you know, what you do on the road and taking us sort of behind the scenes. It's really, really appreciated. But
thank you, Dan.
More than anything, best of luck, and I feel that you're going to get it. So
there you go.
best of luck with the Grammys. Put your hands together for Tierney Sutton.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Marcus Miller. Now, I was born and raised in New York City. Starting as a teenager, I was going from one studio to another studio as a session musician, working with and backing legendary names like Miles Davis, Eric Clapton, Luther Vandross, Roberta Flack, Aretha Franklin, Herbie Hancock, David Sanborn, and many more. As we all know, New York has a heritage and long-standing history of jazz, with many colorful interpretations. Next March, I'm going to take you on a tour of the Big Apple and show you my version of where jazz is alive and kicking in the city that never sleeps. Visiting places like Birdland, Blue Note Jazz Club, B.B. King's Club, and Diamond Horseshoe, all while staying at one of the world's foremost grand hotels, the Waldorf Astoria. We'll also visit Harlem and the famous Apollo Theater and see shows by incredible talent such as the John Pizzarelli Quartet, Jane Monheit, the Christian McBride Quartet, the Emmett Cohen Trio, Joe Lovano, Etienne Charles, and of course, yours truly with my band, which is going to be comprised of Aaron Parks, Eric Harlan, Gretchen Parlato, and Gregoire Marais. With lunches, dinners, shows, transportation, and accommodations, a program of this caliber is not to be missed.